Okay, welcome everyone to this international workshop that is part of Management and Sustainability and Arab Review, MSAR launch process. And this workshop is intended to serve preliminarily the Egyptian researchers, those who are residing in Egypt, whether foreigners or Egyptian, but then we thought to make it also open to the international community since we are holding it virtually as part of our introduction processes to the works of this international journal. Broadly, MSAR, as I'll mention in a second in my agenda, I have a presentation shortly after Ramy introduces Emerald in the Middle East, and also we have another keynote speaker, but I'll talk about that in a second. So we welcome contributions from researchers residing in Egypt, in the diaspora, or beyond, also in the international community, those that as long as they are sort of conducting research that is focused on the Arab world or Arab countries, which is the focus of this journal. So I'll take you through the agenda very briefly. We'll start with Mr. Ramy Hassanein, who is the Regional Manager and Vice President for Middle Eastern, Africa, and Central Asia at Emerald Group. And then he'll be giving a welcome remark for this workshop. And then we're going to have, we had also intended to have the faculty deanship at the German University in Cairo, where I'm based, and also Dr. Hiba Ali, the associate editor of MSAR. But unfortunately, he's not feeling well today, and he's not going to be able to join us. And then I will be giving an introductory seminar. I have a presentation which I'll share with you about MSAR, followed by a Q&A session for anyone who's interested to ask about potential submissions. I'll talk about the time frame of the launch issue, as well as the second issue in the first year. And also we'll talk about the second year as well. This is what we have envisioned so far. But then afterwards, we also have another keynote from Professor Agi Chidlo from Birmingham in the UK, who's going to introduce the RRBM network, which is the Responsible Research in Business and Management Global Network. And then we'll have a break, and then we have two presentations for sample researches that we hope to show as best practices or kind of good papers for this field from both researchers were based at the GUC. One of them is currently an assistant who's co-authoring the paper with two faculty members at the GUC, and then another was also my PhD student, and she's going to talk about marketing and the Sustainable Development Goals. This is in brief, or in a nutshell, the agenda for today. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Ramy. Would you like to, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Noha. Good morning, everyone. Actually, today I'm so proud, not only because I'm representing Emerald, but also because today I believe we are celebrating the success of Arab scholars in creating real impact for the community, both locally, regionally, and also internationally, by launching this new title. Emerald is so proud to host the new title and help in creating together real impact for the world. Talking about Emerald, the company was founded more than 55 years ago, and it was founded actually by a group of researchers, group of professors from Bradford University, and their aim at that time was to help disseminating knowledge to the world. And since the launch of the UN SDGs, Emerald was one of the first publishers to align its publishing strategy to the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, and trying to help creating a better world for everyone. And we work with thousands of institutions across the globe, both academic or public institutions. And our aim and objective is to share knowledge and provoke the kind of debates that leads to positive change to the humankind everywhere. This is a very short introduction, but I would like to wish you a very all the best for a great success for the new title, and hopefully soon it will be ranked as one of the top titles in its own subject. Congratulations, Dr. Noha, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Ramy. I'll be proceeding now with sharing my my screen. So. So can you all see my screen now? Yeah. Basically this title, Management and Sustainability and Arab Review, MSAR, is part of Emerald's responsible management global goal. And therefore it will contribute to Emerald's passion for leading change and aligning everything that Emerald does with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as Ramy has mentioned. Through publishing journals like MSAR, Emerald champions researchers, practitioners, and policymakers and organizations collectively that share the goal of contributing to a more sustainable, responsible, and ethical way of working. Emerald continues to work with institutions that recognize just and lawful governance built on ethical and sustainable practices and aims to facilitate real impact of what they do. And emanating from this vision of responsible management, this journal was established to actually create this global dialogue and position research that has to do with sustainability in Arab countries in a collective platform that can pave the way for development of this ongoing conversation. The launch event we had took place in Berlin at the German International University campus, and where we had hosted Professor Elizabeth Fröhlich from the CBS International Business School in Germany. She's also spokesperson for the UN Principles for Responsible Management Education, the UN Prime Chapter DACH, which is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, German-speaking countries. Lisa is very active in this area, and we wanted to kind of position our journal as one of the stakeholders of these initiatives, such as also the RRBM network that will be also presented shortly. So Prime was one of these initiatives globally that we wanted to actually converse with and make sure that we align our journal with. We had several webinars following that launch event as part of the launch process. Today is actually also an extension of this effort. So we started with a webinar by Professor Oliver Lash, which was titled Localizing Responsible Management in the Arab Region, the Need for MSAR and Promising Areas of Research. And in this webinar, which is also posted on the LinkedIn page of MSAR, it outlined basically the research areas that were expected or potentially promising in this field. Then we had Professor Michael Heinlein from ESCP Europe Paris campus. Michael spoke about responsible research and marketing, what it is and why is it important. In this webinar. Also, it is recorded and posted on the MSAR journal platform on the LinkedIn page. We also have another webinar planned, Professor Shekhar Zahra, who's from the University of Minnesota in the US. And this is part of the MSAR webinar series, and it's going to be on the 22nd of January, 2022, 4 p.m. Cairo time. And basically, we try to accommodate between those who are, cross-Atlantic, who have time zone differences, and those who are basically in the Middle East and in Europe. So that's why this webinar is also planned. It's upcoming to make sure that we also involve scholars who are in the diaspora or just working in international institutions across the Atlantic. So in a nutshell, the launch process included the launch event at the GIU Berlin, then a series of online webinars. Most of them are posted on, all of them actually are posted on YouTube and available on both my LinkedIn account and the journal dedicated LinkedIn page. We had this idea of having this dedicated page to make sure that everything is collectively posted on this page, and we invite you all to share with your networks and to kind of like and follow this page to make sure that we spread positive word of mouth and extend our voices globally. And then we also intend to have international workshops and conferences like the one we're having today with the support of the editorial board members to make sure we have a sustainable pipeline of papers. And one idea I had, and I welcome also comments on this, is to have the board members invited to give 5-minute presentations before or after the conference presentations globally. Most board members are actually international scholars who are well known in their fields, and therefore they can actually present the journal as part of their conference presentations, whatever they are. So we'll have this idea also in mind. And then we're also working on creating a database of scholars in Arab universities, in business schools in general, as well as those who are researching CSR, ethics, sustainability, responsible management in the region, the context of Arab countries. So everyone will be also invited to submit on the Scholar One system once it is open for submissions, and the submission system should open on the 4th of Jan, expected after the new year. Of course, we have Christmas holidays coming up and New Year holidays, so then we'll have this Scholar One system operating afterwards. We intend to have a future dedicated society with the same title, probably the MSAR society or something, to make sure that this body propels the journal forward, but this is a future plan. We also intend to have an annual conference, probably starting with Germany and then extending to other countries around the world with the help of the editorial board members. And then we also intend to have a case studies section for teaching case studies. We did not start with that as a potential contribution for the journal, but we intend later on to have a dedicated teaching case studies section, probably following the first year, where we can solicit case studies that can be used in teaching and have teaching notes accompanying them also in the future. The Scholar One system, like I said, should operate on the 4th of Jan. Interested researchers can communicate with me now for initial screening of the submissions. And then we will also ask the authors to submit online on the submission portal to make sure everything is peer reviewed in the expected peer review process after the new year. The expected issue dates for the first issue is kind of to accept papers by 21st of March and then publish 13th of June. The second issue should be accepted by 22nd of August and published 14th of November. We also have an editorial in process with the journal Philosophy and Potential Research Themes currently in process, where several board members are also going to be invited to contribute. So to conclude, in 2022, we expect 2 issues of 5 papers each, and these will be open access as per the agreement with Emerald Publishing for 2022. And then in 2023, we expect 4 subscription issues, and this is what we envision. In terms of the marketing for the journal is announced through a press release on Emerald Publishing global website announcing management and sustainability and Arab review. This you will find also on the LinkedIn page for MSAR. And this is the journal dedicated page also. It's also on our LinkedIn profile, but you can find the link here as well. This is the visual we chose also for the journal. We also, ground this journal theoretically and practically. So one of the articles I've read in Forbes Middle East had sparked this interest in me to kind of take this journal forward, and it talked about 10 sustainable companies in the MENA region. Several of them were actually Egyptian, but then also from different countries around the Middle East. Now, theoretically, despite this emergent scholarly research on sustainability that is also reflected on the ground in the Arab world, it remains published sporadically. So the literature is quite scant, but it is present in leading management journals such as the Journal of Business Ethics and Business and Society. Yet no dedicated, well-regarded research platform or journal exists to compile, build on, and develop this conversation to date. Now, on a practical level, despite presence of several companies and initiatives, Arab countries are in serious need to advance discussions on sustainability discourse on the road towards development and furthering the sustainability discussions. So the rationale behind MSAR would therefore be to agglomerate research under this broad umbrella of management and sustainability, especially in Arab countries, because this is underrepresented in the international literature. As I mentioned at the beginning, scholars residing in Arab countries, in the diaspora, or broadly in the international community are welcome to submit the research to MSAR. So our aim is basically threefold. The first aim is to compile research efforts under the broad umbrella of management and sustainability, especially in Arab countries that lack this dedicated forum for these issues. The second is to propel this research agenda or field forward in partnership with leading global institutions such as UN Prime or RRBM, the one we're hosting also today in this workshop. And others. The intention is to raise the bar with MSAR to a good ranking standard on ABDC and ABS journal guides. And for this, we have several board members who are actively interested to support us to reach this goal. The third aim would be to provide opportunities for research dialogue pertinent to this important field. And this dialogue, we argue, and this was clear in our philosophy in the editorial, that it's not going to only benefit regional researchers, but also would provide better international understanding of the nuances of sustainable management in the Arab world. Another thing is the potential themes we expect in terms of submissions as related to sustainability are broad enough to encompass several fields within management, and we also welcome interdisciplinary papers. So basically general management, sustainability marketing, education, which is teaching, learning, and pedagogy, strategy, innovation, and entrepreneurship, technology and digitalization, of course, philosophy, religion, and spirituality, accounting and finance, leadership and organizational behavior, and economics. We do welcome also, like I said, interdisciplinary approaches that serve this global goal of advancing sustainability discussions in this region. So I'll stop at that, and I want to ask if there's any questions. So stop share. If there are any questions here at this point, I also welcome any questions from interested researchers. And then because the colleague also, we have some time, the colleague Dr. Aggie Chidlow from Birmingham will join us at 11.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Professor El-Bassiouny, thank you very much for the introduction. I just was wondering, because you know that I'm heading the design faculty, so you would also encourage, let's say, cooperations or intra-faculty collaborations with regards to design, sustainability, branding, brand management, for instance.
Definitely, I would be happy to, for any submissions that are cross-faculty, interdisciplinary, all of this is also very much welcome. If you have a paper already ready, or deadline is like to accept the papers by March, but anything that is ready currently also would be very welcome. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Um, yes, Dr. Lamia.
Okay, I have hi. It's kind of more of a proposal rather than a comment. I think it would be a good idea if later on there can be some kind of personal kind of building, some kind of personal connections between researchers residing into the Arab regions, particularly Arab researchers and interested researchers or scholars who work abroad in different base UK or Europe-based universities and US-based universities operating or working interested in the field of sustainability. So it's more of establishing kind of a platform for different research, kind of international research. I think that will not only that will not just allow a high quality publishing here in the new journal of MSAR as well, but would also offer some kind of international exposure, international publications in already well-established as well journals.
Yeah, this is the plan. Like I said, we are interested not just in Arab researchers, but those who are also working on collaborations, whether they are residing in Arab countries or beyond Arab countries, as long as the focus is on sustainability in this region. So this is a good idea. Thank you.
Professor Noha, can I just comment?
Yes, please. This is
actually connecting researchers across the globe is a great idea, and this is one of our missions and objectives as well at Emerald. And for that, we have developed a special platform called Emerald Engage. Mm-hmm. Basically it's a kind of a Facebook for researchers and peers to discuss different research ideas and exchange experience across the globe. Basically, it's not dedicated to any specific region or any specific subject. Peers can create their own rooms, discussion rooms on the platform. So I would encourage, if possible, you all to please join it and create your own room, and then you can discuss whatever subjects you would like to discuss.
Actually, I'm in favor of this as well. I'm aware of Emerald Engage, and maybe if you could actually share the dedicated journal page on social media. We have the LinkedIn page. Facebook is not a very professional platform, even though I have a lot of researchers who are in Egyptian universities on my Facebook account. That is why I do share some posts there. But I consider LinkedIn as a more professional platform, and that is why I created this page. But if you can actually share MSAR dedicated page on the Emerald Engage platform, this would be also a good idea, I think.
I'll speak to my colleagues and see how can we do it.
Great.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to also, if everyone is fine with that, my PhD student Ola. Ola, are you here? Oh, so she has a short survey that she would like to share at the end. It's basically focused on professors who are researching and how they prioritize the research agendas and what makes them, how they make their choices with respect to choice of research fields and research topics. So I will, if you are interested, it's of course totally voluntary. At the end of this workshop, she'll be sharing on the chat, or maybe you can share it now, actually, as for people who are interested to fill out this survey at their convenience before we finalize this or afterwards. Yeah. So I think we still have half an hour, and Dr. Agi will be joining us. Like I said, she has a commitment. She can join us only at 11. So if there is no further questions, maybe Ranim, you would like to proceed with your presentation, and I'll text Yasmin as well to make sure that she joins us earlier. Ranim, would you be ready to share your screen and present your research?
Sure, Dr. Naha.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Ranim Khalid, and I'm a PhD student at the German University in Cairo. It is my pleasure to be presenting my paper with the title, The Sustainable Development Goals and Corporate Sustainability, Mapping, Extent, and Determinants Today. This paper is published in the Journal of Cleaner Production, co-authored with Professor Ihab Kabel Abul Khair and Dr. Hiba Abbas. The presentation outline is as follows. First, we will start with the introduction, followed by the literature review, research, methodology, findings, and analysis, and finally, the summary and conclusion. In September 2015, the United Nations adopted a global plan of action for sustainable development, named Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, with a broad scope incorporating 5 Ps, which are people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. In September 2015, the 2030 Agenda is a global scheme incorporating 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets addressing global challenges of climate change, social inequality, and environmental degradation. The SDGs call for worldwide action among governments, civil society organizations, and businesses to achieve shared and lasting prosperity. However, the corporate sector still exhibits relatively slow progress with regards to working towards a sustainable world. This raises an important question related to the challenges the corporate sector faces when tangibly measuring and tracking their contribution. Therefore, it is crucial to explore potential frameworks that would guide companies on how they can align their strategies as well as measure and communicate their contribution to the SDGs. In response, several initiatives have been emerging to help companies align and report on the SDGs, including the UN Global Compact and the SDG Compass. Such initiatives offer practical frameworks for companies to engage in issues covered by the SDGs through advocating the linking of existing business indicators with the SDGs. Despite assisting companies in engaging in the SDGs and embedding them in their practices, empirical findings have so far proved that measuring the level of corporate engagement in the SDGs is associated with various methodological problems, mainly related to the selection of indicators, data availability, and the interpretation of the results. Thus, existing attempts to answer the question of how firms can best assess the degree to which their actions impact contributing to the SDGs remains inconclusive. One way of assessing firms' progress towards achieving the SDGs is to measure the impact on SDGs in relation to corporate sustainability performance. That is, how firms' sustainable practices and activities are helping achieve the SDGs. Empirically, corporate sustainability performance has been widely measured in the literature using environmental, social, and governance scores, which form new accountability measures that reflect voluntary commitment to non-financial goals and sustainable development. However, the lack of connection between these scores and the SDGs makes it difficult for firms to articulate how their ESG activities are directly contributing to the SDGs and targets. Therefore, there is a need for mapping ESG scores against the SDGs to provide companies seeking to align their sustainability practice with the SDGs with an actionable solution to track and assess their impact on the SDGs. However, mapping studies in this regard are scarce. These studies only include Demeets and Patke in 2017, Betty et al. And Consolandi et al., who mapped 30 SASB ESG issues to specific SDGs and targets, analyzing how firms contribute to the SDGs. Accordingly, this study seeks to contribute to the emerging research on SDGs by providing a comprehensive framework that maps or links the SDGs with well-established measures of corporate sustainability practices, namely the ESG scores. More specifically, this study aims at providing companies with a detailed guide that assists them in identifying SDGs and targets that are most relevant to their sustainable practices, helping them understand how organizational level sustainable practices contribute to the support of the global goals and targets. Therefore, this study develops its first research objective, aiming to map a firm's ESG scores with the SDGs via mapping the 3 ESG pillar scores, their 10 categories, and the relevant underlying measures with the 17 SDGs and their 169 targets. This paper also contributes to the research by using definitive ESG scores to map with the SDGs, which are measures commonly utilized as a proxy for corporate sustainability performance in literature. However, while we propose the mapping of a company's ESG scores with the SDGs, we still recognize that most companies are distinct in the way they approach the role towards contributing to the SDGs and sustainability performance. Hence, the question arises as how various factors help explain variation in corporate sustainability performance. When investigating the adoption of corporate sustainability practices, most of the literature tends to focus on the effects of regulatory and institutional pressures, whereas the influence of internal organizational factors on sustainability performance is often under research. In this study, we aim to fill this gap by investigating the firm-specific characteristics that may impact a company's sustainability performance, hence influencing its contribution towards the achievement of the SDGs. Unlike other mapping studies, this study goes a step further and investigates potential associations between firm-specific characteristics and corporate sustainability performance reflected in their ESG performance. Since the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted by world leaders in 2015, literature has paid more attention to studying corporate engagement in the SDGs. Some studies explore the potential role of corporate activities in supporting the SDGs. Others discuss the motivations, opportunities, and values for firms to work towards achieving the SDGs, while other studies explore the interactions between the SDGs and targets. However, the overall findings of these studies reveal that corporate engagement in implementing the SDGs is still limited and intentional more than actual. They also reveal that the measurement of the level of corporate engagement in the SDGs is associated with various methodological difficulties. Therefore, other studies have attempted to propose general frameworks to map the generic ESG issues to the SDGs, and accordingly assess how firms can contribute to the SDGs based on their ESG performance. This mapping approach was first explored by Reitz and Fatke in 2017 to map the 30 SASB ESG categories with the 17 SDGs, linking corporate sustainability activities with the SDGs. Likewise, Betty et al. Mapped the 30 SASB ESG issues to the SDGs and targets. And finally, Consolandi et al. Mapped the SDGs and their targets to the 30 SASB ESG issues, focusing only on goal number 3. Theoretically, literature has identified different incentives for firms to engage in sustainable practices. The agency theory suggests that firms provide sustainability disclosure in order to reduce information asymmetries between firms and investors, creating value for shareholders. On the other hand, the stakeholder theory proposes that companies engage in sustainability practices to meet the interests of their various stakeholders, while the legitimacy theory, offering a wider perspective, focuses on external pressures exerted on organizations for sustainability performance set by the norms and regulations of the society they are operating in. And finally, the institutional theory links the extent to which organizations adopt sustainable practices to changing institutional pressures and expectations. These pressures should stimulate organizations to adopt sustainability practices to satisfy the demands and expectations of internal and external groups. However, when implementing such strategies, differences in firm-specific characteristics may result in varying sustainability practices among firms. The legitimacy theory suggests that profitable companies tend to undertake more sustainability activities in order to manifest their contribution to the society's well-being and to legitimize their existence. However, the agency theory suggests that in periods of relatively low profitability, firms engage in more sustainable practices as a means of convincing financial stakeholders that current sustainable initiatives will result in long-term prosperity and competitive advantage. With regards to firm size, advocates of the stakeholder theory posit that larger firms normally receive greater attention from the public. Therefore, such firms may be subject to greater pressure to undertake more sustainability activities to build closer relationships with their different stakeholders. Consistently, the agency theory suggests that larger firms usually have higher agency costs due to information asymmetry between managers and shareholders, thus are more likely to disclose sustainable-related information to portray that their actions are legitimate and consistent with good corporate citizenship. Regarding financial leverage, prior literature suggests two conflicting views. The first view builds on the agency theory, suggesting that highly leveraged firms tend to disclose more sustainability information in order to reduce agency costs generated as a result of their higher debt levels. In contrast, the stakeholder theory postulates that firms are more likely to address the concerns of debt holders as being a powerful stakeholder group rather than the concerns of less powerful stakeholders. Therefore, firms with high indebtedness are expected to pay less attention to sustainability activities. To fulfill our research objectives, this study chooses a sample including all companies listed in the MSCI Emerging Markets Index over the time period of 2002 till 2018. An initial sample of 1,200 companies across 25 emerging markets is identified. After cleaning duplicate and missing values, a total of 97 firms are dropped from the sample, resulting in a final sample of 1,105 companies. An emerging markets context is specifically chosen for the study because while the relationship between firm-specific factors and corporate sustainability performance has been widely studied in the context of developed markets, examining this relationship in emerging markets is a less explored question. And finally, the sample firms are sorted into 11 industrial groups based on the industry classification benchmark of DataStream. The data is collected from several databases. Annual ESG scores are collected from Refinitiv, previously known as Thomson Reuters, which specializes in providing objective, relevant, and comparable ESG performance of a company. Data on firm-specific independent variables are obtained from Refinitiv DataStream, while other country-specific factors employed as control variables are obtained from multiple databases, such as the World Bank and the World Bank Worldwide Governance Indicators. Table 1 presents the variables measurement. The dependent variable is the ESG score and its 3 pillar scores. With regards to the independent variables, we use variables usually adopted in the finance literature, which are profitability, firm size, and leverage. And we also control for other well-documented variables, such as book-to-market value and macroeconomic and institutional factors. To achieve our aim at providing a complete framework to help assess firms' contribution to the SDGs, we map the 3 ESG pillar scores provided by Refinitiv, their 10 categories and the underlying measures with the 17 SDGs and their 169 targets. In our analysis, we consider all goals rather than limiting our mapping to specific selected goals or targets, as we believe that this approach can help provide the basis for a comprehensive framework that allows to track progress towards the goals and their associated targets. As demonstrated, the mapping process undertaken by the study is as follows. First, we start by identifying the SDG that we wish to map or link to the ESG scores. Second, the different targets related to each SDG are identified. Afterwards, we map these targets with the most relevant underlying measures out of 178 measures of the ESG score based on their description provided by Refinitiv. Due to the breadth of each SDG targets, each of them encapsulates several underlying measures. And finally, we identify the category and the pillar relevant to the selected underlying measures, based on which we consequently map the SDG with the relevant ESG score. And then to measure the extent to which each SDG is mapped with the ESG underlying measures, we calculate the total number of the relevant ESG underlying measures that could be mapped or linked with each SDG, and estimate the ESG relevance index, which is the ERI, as the ratio of that number to the total number of ESG's underlying measures, which have the total of 178 underlying measures as follows. To assess the impact of firms achieving the SDGs, we utilize the ESG performance as a proxy for the extent to which firms contribute to the SDGs. Past studies, including Betty et al., revealed supportive evidence in favor of using ESG scores as an indicator for sustainability performance in SDGs. Therefore, after identifying the ESGs that contribute to the SDGs via our mapping framework, we explored the firm-specific characteristics that may impact an organization's ESG performance, hence gaining more insight into an organization's contribution to the SDGs. Before running the regression models, we test for multicollinearity among the variables through the use of VIF. According to the results, no multicollinearity is observed since the intercorrelations among the explanatory variables are low. We then run our regression analysis. To capture the variation within the cross-sectional and time effects in the panel data, this study follows Garcia et al. Employing a panel regression. Hausmann's specification test is employed to determine whether a random or fixed effects panel regression best fulfills our examined sample, and results report a p-value of 0. Thus, the null hypothesis is rejected, recommending the use of fixed effects. However, such result provides evidence of a correlation between the regressors or the independent variables and the error term, suggesting the presence of an indigeneity problem. Accordingly, this study checks for endogeneity issues that may be present in the regression analyses resulting from omitted variables bias or reverse causality concerns. Consequently, following Fatemi et al., we supplement our fixed effects regressions with a two-stage least square estimation method mitigating concerns over endogeneity. Figure 1 provides the results of our mapping of the 17 SDGs with the 3 ESG scores, which are the environmental, social, and governance pillar scores. And Table 2 provides the ESG relevance index, where we can observe a substantial variation in the extent to which each SDG is mapped with the ESG underlying measures. For example, the ERI ranges from 1.1% for SDG 1 and SDG 14 to 10.7% for SDG 12, showing that some ESG issues are more relevant to the SDGs than others. And this is normal. It would be expected that some SDGs, for example, SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production, to be more important to the business sector than other goals such as SDG 4, which is quality education. To assess the role of firms in achieving the SDGs, we utilize the ESG scores as proxies for the extent to which firms contribute to the SDGs. Table 3 reports the descriptive statistics of the variables used in the study. Findings indicate that the ESG scores were highly volatile from 2002 till 2018, ranging from 7.9 to 95.5. And similar findings are also observed across the 3 ESG pillar scores. These results demonstrate that the sample firms exhibit similar characteristics and are operating in countries with different macroeconomic and institutional environments. Table 4 presents the regression coefficients for the regression models investigating the impact of the previously identified firm-specific determinants on the extent of corporate ESG performance. Model 1, panels A to D, report the fixed effects regression analyses, while Model 2, panels A to D, report the relevant 2 SLS results. Findings reported in Model 1, panels A to C, demonstrate that profitability exhibits a significantly positive influence on ESG, environmental, and social performance. This agrees with the legitimacy theory, predicting that profitable companies tend to manifest their contribution to their stakeholders and society's well-being through increased ESG activities. However, panel D indicates no significant association between profitability and governance, which is consistent with Garcia et al. As expected, we also find that firm size carries positive coefficients, indicating that larger companies have more resources for engaging in sustainability activities and tend to have better ESG performance. With regards to financial leverage, the negative coefficients imply that highly leveraged companies, due to fund limitations and increased debt obligations, might lack sufficient resources to support their ESG activities. And finally, Model 2, panels A to D, report the 2 SLS regression results, which are consistent with our main predictions, implying that endogeneity concerns are not likely to be driving our primary findings. Finally, as an initial step in directing businesses towards effectively contributing to the achievement of the SDGs, this study employs or develops a comprehensive framework that hand maps the SDGs and their targets with affirmed sustainability practices reflected in its ESG performance. Our mapping provides an actionable solution for firms to identify where the SDGs are connected with their ESG performance and accordingly tangibly measure the progress towards achieving the SDGs. Our study shows that some SDGs and targets are more relevant to the business sector than others, finding that only 40 targets out of the 169 targets could be captured by relevant ESG indicators, which should not be surprising as many targets focus on government rather than business action. Unlike other mapping studies, this study goes further and investigates how firm-specific characteristics help explain the variation in corporate sustainability performance and ultimately their contribution to the SDGs. To do so, we analyze the firm's performance on the 3 ESG dimensions and thereafter investigate potential associations between firm-specific characteristics and corporate sustainability performance. Our findings indicate that profitable and larger companies are more likely to exhibit better sustainability performance, which is consistent with previous research. And findings also reveal that financial leverage has a significant negative impact on the level of corporate ESG performance. We believe our findings are helpful for corporates, academics, and investors as we provide businesses with a well-structured practical framework that links their ESG performance with the relevant SDGs and targets and eliminates confusion around where the SDGs are connected with their ESG activities. Accordingly, firms are able to prioritize goals that they could have the greatest impact upon and identify where specific gaps might exist. Academically, we hope that our mapping findings will contribute to the understanding of the linkages among the ESG issues, corporate sustainability performance, and the SDGs, and allow for quantitatively evaluating firms' progress towards the SDGs using available ESG performance indicators. Our findings also contribute to the debate over the effect of firm-specific characteristics on corporate sustainability performance in the context of emerging markets, which extends the literature on the agency, legitimacy, stakeholder, and institutional entities. For investors and other stakeholders, using available ESG performance indicators, they can assess their firm's impact on contributing to the relevant SDG at both target and goal levels. Finally, this research has certain limitations which can be extended as directions of future work. Firstly, in the scope of the study, we utilize ESG measures as proxies for firms' impact on the SDGs. However, they obviously do not directly measure that in. In addition, we utilize the ESG scores provided by Refinitiv. It will be instructive to consider other sustainability scores provided by other rating agencies, such as the Dow Jones Sustainability Indices, and compare the different results. And finally, our study utilizes a sample of only large and mid-cap representations, hence including firms of smaller size can provide more insights into the results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramy.
Thank you, Dr. Noah.
Can you please stop the screen share so that we can actually ask questions from the audience. Anyone has any questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, then we break for 15 minutes. And come back at 11:05, so that by then, hopefully the double RBM professor will have arrived, and then we'll have her presentation followed by the presentation by Yasmin Anwar. If everyone is fine with this scenario, then we can break now for 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.